going to talk about my custom takedown rifles here. This happens to be a 2-barrel set. This is built on a Winchester Model 70 Action, fiberglass stock, 257 Weatherby, 300 Winchester Magnum. And this has a Leopold VX5 HD scope with a custom dial system, 2 to 10, a 42 millimeter, 30 millimeter tube, flare dot, duplex reticle. This rifle is built to accept 2 scopes, one for the 257 and one for the 300. And the first thing that a person needs to do to take apart one of these takedown rifles, pull the bolt to the back or take the bolt completely out. These are tally 2-piece bases and rings, quick detachable. And you simply turn this lever 2 turns. That releases the scope, and take the scope off. You got the scope removed, and then to remove the barrel, I almost always hold the rifle upside down, and the easiest thing to do is to be standing up with this between your legs. Forgot to take the lock screw out of it, folks. Helps if you do everything. Take the lock screw out. Wondered why it wasn't turning. Anyway, unscrew the barrel. I won't unscrew it all the way, or screw it back in till both the forestock and the butt section line up. And that time you can close the bolt. You can mount the scope back on there. And I always put the scope on from one side, hook it on the one side, pull it over to the other side, turn these levers. And I've indexed these levers up basically so that when they're positioned, both these levers are pretty much pointed in the same direction. And of course, we have to reinstall the lock screw. And both these rifles come with 2 of these screws in case you happen to lose one. You notice that when I took the screw out, I put it in my pocket. That way you know where it is instead of not knowing where it is. When you put it back together, you always tighten these down tight with the lock wrench. Everything's built precisionally. The barrel is machined, the thread's machined, shoulder of the barrel's machined, the perfect fit into the receiver. Everything indexes up properly. There's a recessed indent in the wall of the thread, goes through the action for this lock screw. This has got a special taper on the end of it. This locks down into the barrel, keeps anything from rotating. The barrel locks up against the shoulder of the action. However, this lock screw is necessary to hold this in place. This mount system I've chosen, and this is pretty much the exclusive mount system that I use, except for a few instances where there's dovetailed receivers. Then it would be rings that would be made for the dovetailed type of receiver, such as Ruger 77s and or CZ actions and some Seiko actions. So basically everything is all made and fitted properly. The forend is glass bedded to the barrel. There's a lug on the barrel. There's a screw that goes into the forend. Screws into that lug to keep that forend from coming loose and so forth. You might from time to time to check to see that this forend screw is tight. These action screws tight when everything's all put together. That's properly glass bedded. Everything is fitted. Everything is fitted in such a way. This is a very simple, straightforward machining, fitting operation of building a takedown. You got to understand that I built, many of these takedown rifles. Not a lot, but many. Somewhere, I'm going to guess somewhere by now I've built 70 some odd takedown rifles over a number of years. I first came up with these ideas about 25 years ago, and it's been very, very popular. Your rifle breaks down, comes apart in these two sections. You can put that in a short case. You have a special bag made for each, the butt section or the forestock, if you wanted something like that done. And anyway, this is a very handy situation. This is a very wise choice as far as I'm concerned in the way of calibers. A fairly fast stepping 257 Weatherby would take care of almost any game that you wanted to hunt in North America, and a great share of game, for instance, in Africa. Wonderful antelope, sheep, deer type cartridges. The 257 Weatherby is, and in addition, you've got the 300 Winchester Magnum for some of the heavier game and so forth. Both far-reaching, good energy delivering calibers with proper bullet weights to be able to take game ethically at ethical distances, say inside 500-600 yards. And there's a multitude of caliber selections, but when we select a second caliber or select calibers, we need to stick with the same basic case head. The same basic case head in this instance is the 300 H&H basic, designed off of that case head, the Magnum case head. We have a 30-06, we've got to stick with that basic case head. 30-06, 308 type case heads. There's a huge selection, in either instance. And there's other choices too. We can step up from the 300 H&H case head size to, say, for instance, the 416 Rigby case head size. That's the same as the 338 Lapua. So you could have a 416 Rigby and a 338 Lapua. You could have, a 30 by 378 Weatherby and a 416 Rigby, or a 460 Weatherby Magnum, or a 416 Weatherby Magnum. The same basic case head size. We go way down in the smaller sizes to the 17 calibers. We could have, say, for instance, a 17 Remington, a 17 Remington Fireball, a 222 Magnum, 223, things of this sort. Anything based off of those cases. That 204 Ruger case, that's still the same 375, 378 rim size of all those cartridges, fitted into a much smaller action, a different type of an action. So there's a tremendous amount of choices. So when you come up with an idea, well, I can't build you a 25-06 and a 300 Winchester Magnum. it's not going to work, folks, because the case rim size is different. If we've got aught-6 case head sizes, we got to stick with those sizes. That's a 470 rim size. The standard Magnum case heads, based off the 300 case, is 532. Well, we've got some other choices there. The same rim size, for instance, as the 300 PRC, the 375 Ruger, the 416 Ruger, and so on and so forth, or any Wildcat based off of that basic Ruger case. That's also a 532 rim size. So there's a tremendous amount of choices. So when you get an idea, pay attention to what I'm describing here for rim sizes. And I don't build takedowns with different bolts and one thing and another for different size rim sizes, because then we start running into situations where we've got feed situations. As a rule, that's not an area that I head into. And there are some rare instances where that could possibly be done, but you know, it all depends on exactly what we're trying to do. This is a fairly utility type rifle with fiberglass stock. You build these with laminated stocks. Build it with, you know, nicely figured walnut stocks, maple stocks, checkered, whatever it might happen to be, for whatever your purpose might happen to be, whatever your budget might happen to be. And you know, we're talking about rifles, you know, without scopes. They're starting in the $5,000 on up category, up to, you know, as much as you want to spend, $20,000, $30,000, if that's what you want to spend on a high grade 2-barrel takedown rifle. You know, I'll entertain almost any of these things as long as it's workable, as long as it's going to feed properly and function properly, and everything else. You know, we can do it. Now, one of the things that I might point out is that, you know, almost all these takedowns are built in a sporter style. Now, I can build them with heavier barrels and one thing or another, depending on what that might happen to be. But this is a sporter weight barrel. It has a muzzle brake, and this happens to be, you know, what the person wanted. They don't want it any other way but with the muzzle brake. But anyway, I have people that want to use suppressors. I don't recommend using suppressors on the takedown rifle. The thing that you need to understand, I want to make this very clear, is that there's a tremendous amount of turbulence that goes on in that suppressor. When that bullet passes through that suppressor, there's a tremendous amount of gas pressure there. That disturbs a lot of things. And I don't recommend suppressors for these sporter weight type rifles. I think that you ought to have at least a number 5 or heavier weight barrel. And I don't recommend it for takedowns. If you want a suppressor, don't ask for it on a takedown because of the fact of those various aspects. You see, the barrel is tightened up as tight as hand tight can possibly be on a takedown rifle. It's not put on with 45 pounds of torque with an action wrench. That's the difference, folks. We don't need it to work on our system. The takedown system that I've designed and perfected over many, many years. So this is basically kind of where we're at with these sorts of things. And I offer a heavy aluminum smaller takedown case for rifles for people that might happen to want that. You know, they're reasonably higher priced, really high-end quality cases that are lockable. You could travel anywhere in the world with the case, and your gun would be fully protected in that case. Heavy gauge aluminum that's not going to get beat around that something isn't going to happen to your rifle
We have custom made here.
in travel, and we have these cases made to our specifications locally here. So anyway, I thought it was time for kind of a little bit of an update on takedowns, because I'm always throughout the year building some takedown rifles, and that continues to be a popular request and so forth. So there you have it, folks.